First at 4, the trial for a man accused of shooting 5 people at Fort Stewart last year. Moving forward today, Sergeant Cornelius Radford returned to the courtroom after pleading guilty to 6 offenses in March, and he saw his motion dropped for remaining charges denied.
Well, WSAV's Evan Smoke in the courtroom today. He's got the latest.
The defense team for Sergeant Cornelius Radford argued Monday that the remaining charges should be dropped due to unlawful command influence of a key witness. The judge did not agree. The motion stemmed from a counseling meeting that Sergeant Randall Brown had on May 8th. Brown was a law enforcement officer who took custody of Radford after being arrested after shooting 5 people at Fort Stewart on August 8th, 2025. The defense argued that in this counseling, Brown was potentially influenced to testify a certain way or face punishment. Brown was called to the meeting for failure to read Radford, as well as a second person in a separate incident of their Article 31 rights. The defense continued that the timing of the counseling in May, after Radford had pled guilty to multiple charges in March, was potential proof of unlawful command influence, and asserted that Brown was the only witness the government or prosecution has that could prove Radford's intent. The defense sought relief by dismissing the remaining charges and/or barring Brown from testifying. Prosecutors argued that the counseling was only intended to inform Brown he was being temporarily reassigned while the review of potential rights violations was ongoing. The prosecution added that Brown was only informed to tell the truth during this meeting, something Brown himself testified. Following arguments from both sides, the judge denied the motion. The trial for the remaining charges, which center around Radford's intent last August, will begin Tuesday at 9 a.m. Reporting from Fort Stewart, Evan Smoke, WSAV News 3, on your side.
Police are investigating after one person was injured in a shooting over the weekend in Savannah. Savannah police say officers responded just after midnight a Sunday to Wolf Street near Chatham Area Transit on Gwinnett Street. They found a man with non-life-threatening gunshot wound to his leg. The victim told officers he was walking home when shots were fired from a vehicle. No arrests have been made at this time. Now, if you have any information, you are asked to call Crime Stoppers at 912-234-2020.
And on Sunday, 5 men were arrested and charged in murder in connection to a Nicksville shooting over in Hampton County that killed the 19-year-old. It happened back on May 24th when deputies responded to Two Sisters Ferry Road after getting reports that several people had been shot. 2 people were actually injured. 19-year-old Josiah Smart killed. Now, according to the Hampton County Sheriff's Office, they're the ones investigating this. The 5 men charged are Devin Walker, Jaquan Garnes, Henry Kearse Jr., Jeremiah Walker, and DeAndre Gant. All have been charged with murder, assault, attempted murder, and attempted armed robbery, and all were denied bond. Officials say additional charges could be added as this investigation continues.
The Hinesville Police Department is asking for information related to a deadly shooting that happened in May. Here's the video. This is in connection to the May 24th shooting death of 18-year-old Jamonte Barnes at Irene Thomas Park. No arrests have been made. Anyone with information is urged to call Crime Stoppers. And you can also call the Hinesville Police Department.
Well, WSAV is your local election headquarters. South Carolina voters, they're going to have a short early voting period later this week just ahead of the June 23rd runoff. Early voting only open Wednesday, June 17th and Thursday, June 18th. That's this week. Voting sites will be closed Friday for the Juneteenth holiday as well. Now, some of the top candidates in 2 Palmetto State races came to Hilton Head to push for those last-minute votes. The Republican Women of Southern Beaufort County, which is one of the largest groups in the state, hosted Jenny Honeycutt and Mark Smith, who are both running for the District 1 congressional seat. And the 2 Republicans vying for the state attorney general's position, David Stumbo and Stephen Goldfish, also on hand. The congressional pair each believe they've done enough to take home their party's nomination in next week's runoff.
I really feel strongly that the inflation is being created by the out-of-control spending, and Congress has got to get that under control. And so I have a message. We're going to go up there, we're going to push for a balanced budget amendment, but in the meantime, we are going to tackle this spending in the entire budget.
People have really appreciated my strong conservative voting record of delivering results, not platitudes and promises on the campaign trail, keeping citizens safe, making sure we're energy independent along with that America First agenda, and just continuing to lower taxes.
Now, the winner of this race is going to face either of the Democratic candidates, Mac DeFord or Nancy LaCour, in November's election.
U.S. Representative Ralph Norman throwing his support behind Attorney General Alan Wilson for governor of South Carolina. In a post today, he says in part, Alan is a combat veteran, a prosecutor, a family man, and a Christian. I believe he will work with conservatives across the state to advance an agenda that puts South Carolinians first. Wilson will be facing off, by the way, against Lieutenant Governor Pamela Evette for the June 23rd runoff. Evette has been endorsed by President Donald Trump and the current governor, Henry McMaster.
And of course, Georgia's primary runoff election is tomorrow. And as you vote to prepare to return to the polls, President Trump now weighing in on the GOP Senate race. The president has now endorsed Congressman Mike Collins for the Republican nomination. In a post on social media, he called Collins, quote, a highly respected congressman who's been with me from the very beginning, adding that Collins is a, quote, winner who'll never let you down. Now, meanwhile, for U.S. Senate, voters will choose, of course, between Congressman Collins and former football coach Derek Dooley. Dooley's been backed by Georgia Governor Brian Kemp. The winner's going to face Democratic Senator Jon Ossoff in November.
Now to the gubernatorial Republican runoff in Georgia. One candidate in that race receiving high-profile endorsements over the weekend. Governor Brian Kemp says he is endorsing Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones to be his successor. Kemp showed his support for Jones in a post on X Sunday, touting his accomplishments. Savannah Congressman Buddy Carter also announcing his endorsement for Jones for governor. Well, Jones will face off tomorrow against businessman Rick Jackson for the Republican nomination for governor. The winner moves on to November in a race against Democratic candidate and former Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms. Now to the Democratic race for Georgia's 1st congressional district. Tomorrow, voters will choose between Amanda Hollowell and Joyce Griggs. The winner will face Jim Kingston in November.
And happening tonight, Rick Jackson will hold his final Savannah campaign stop at Shelter Aviation on 100 Eddie Youngman Drive. It's taking place at 5 o'clock. Of course, WSAV will be there. We'll bring you any important events from that moment.
You can find additional information on voting and the candidates simply by going to our website, wsav.com/electionhq.
And coming up at 4:30, I've got our political expert, Dr. Kim Martin, here to talk about where those races stand and maybe some predictions about this week's runoff.
While voters prepare for tomorrow's runoffs, state lawmakers are also getting ready to address a separate election issue, and that could impact future voting all across Georgia. Lawmakers return to Atlanta Wednesday for a special session called by Governor Brian Kemp. One of the biggest issues on the agenda is Georgia's voting system. A law passed 2 years ago bans the use of QR codes, or this is for official vote tabulation after July 1st, but state leaders have not yet agreed on a replacement system. State election officials and the State Election Board already issuing conflicting guidance to local election offices. That's raising concern about possible confusion or legal challenges ahead of a special congressional election scheduled for next month.